Okay, let's unpack this. We live in a world that is, frankly, just obsessed with optimizing everything.
Oh, absolutely, everything.
Right. I mean, you optimize your sleep, your diet, your workflow, you scroll through your feed, and it's just this endless barrage of biohacks. And naturally, a huge part of that conversation has shifted toward the mind.
Hmm.
Mindfulness, meditation, seeking out that ultimate state of Zen.
Yeah, the classic spiritual mountain climb.
Exactly. We're told the goal is to clear the mind, transcend the noise, and reach, if we're using the big terminology, nirvana or samadhi.
Which is the assumption perpetuated by thousands of self-help books and gurus, that the peak of human experience is this state of total bliss, completely removed from the grit and grime of daily life.
But here's where it gets really interesting for you listening.
Mhm.
What if that is actually a trap?
Right.
What if reaching that state of absolute spiritual bliss is counterproductive to being a functional human being?
Hmm.
What if the Zen master sitting in a cave is actually, well, less spiritually evolved than the guy stressing out over a spreadsheet in the cubicle?
It is a highly provocative question. It completely challenges the fundamental assumption of why we even meditate in the first place. Are we doing it to escape the world or to engage with it more effectively?
So today we are doing a deep dive into the mind and the lived experiences of a truly unique figure. We are looking at the work of Osman, who is also known as the blind Muslim yogi. And I gotta say, looking at the sources, his resume is not something you see every day.
No, it certainly isn't. We are dealing with someone who isn't just theorizing from a textbook. Osman is a bioenergy healer operating at what is described as a master level. He has 50 years of experience in advanced yoga and meditation.
And it gets even more specific and honestly a little mind-bending. The sources highlight that he utilizes principles of quantum entanglement and telepathic healing. He specializes in critical care, recovery, and terminal illnesses.
Yeah, this is someone who has been in the absolute trenches of suffering and healing for half a century. He's studied extensively from various schools of thought, the Far East, the Middle East, the West, and he brings a very scientific approach to all of this.
Which we will definitely get into. But he started young.
Mm.
He attained his first experience of samadhi, that state of intense spiritual absorption, at just 19 years old.
Mm.
So when he critiques this state, he's doing it from the inside out. He's been there, and he realized the reality of it wasn't what was advertised.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to trace Osman's journey from being this bliss junkie teenager to a practical, functioning servant of society.
We're going to look at his theory about the great skip of the heart chakra, the mechanics of the three knots, and why washing dishes might be holier than meditating. Let's jump right into the first major controversy, the drug of samadhi. Because using the word drug, that's a strong choice. When I hear samadhi, I think of clarity.
Right.
I don't think of an opioid.
It is a strong word, but he uses it deliberately. To understand why, you have to look at his early experiences. He reached this level of samadhi at 19, which most seekers spend lifetimes chasing. But instead of a permanent solution, he equates it to an intoxication.
He literally says he didn't want to be in it for long. A type of drug experience.
Sure. Which is startling. I mean, think about the conversations you hear on the Joe Rogan Experience. Rogan frequently has guests like Dennis McKenna talking about DMT or ayahuasca as these portals to other dimensions, right? They describe it as a profound breakthrough. Or Graham Hancock discussing ancient altered states.
Right, they talk about it like it's the ultimate truth.
Exactly. And Osman is describing a natural version of that, no external substances involved. But he's identifying the exact same pitfall. It's a trip.
And you inevitably have to come down from a trip.
You do. Osman describes a literal hangover. He says that when coming out of that deep state of absorption, he couldn't speak for at least an hour.
Wait, he just didn't want to talk. Or he physically couldn't.
Physically couldn't articulate. The cognitive load of re-entering his body was so heavy that the language centers in his brain effectively shut down. It wasn't, oh, I need a minute. It was, I physically cannot interface with this reality.
That is terrifying.
He says his head was reeling. He couldn't function or perform day-to-day duties. He became useless to the world around him. And that word is key. Useless.
It totally reminds me of the Huberman Lab discussions on dopamine. Dr. Andrew Huberman had Dr. Anna Lemke on, talking about dopamine and reward circuits. And they talk about how massive spikes in dopamine lead to a severe crash below baseline.
Yeah.
Osman is basically describing a spiritual dopamine spike that leaves him in a massive deficit, when he just needs to do normal tasks.
Precisely. We see a similar theme in The Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. Bartlett interviewed Mo Gaudat, who talks about the happiness equation. Gaudat emphasizes that happiness isn't a peak state of euphoria. It's a functional state of design and contentment. Osman is arguing that getting lost in the bliss, as he calls it, is the absolute antithesis of functionality.
Getting lost in the bliss.
Yeah, it's an escape. It's this non-dualism without integration.
Yeah.
He explains that in this state, you lose your identity and your ego. Now, in spiritual circles say, if you listen to Buddha at the gas pump with Rick Archer, losing your ego is usually the gold standard.
Oh, for sure.
Archer had Adyashanti on, discussing the post-awakening state. But Osman points out the hidden cost. If you lose your ego completely, you lose your utility.
Because you need an ego to decide to feed your cat or to show up for work.
Exactly. Naval Ravikant talked about this on Rogan, too. How do you chop wood and carry water after enlightenment? If you are escaping reality, how can you serve it? That's the tension Osman wrestled with.
So he's having these intense experiences, but something feels off. And this leads him to a massive discovery about how this energy actually works.
This is the aha moment of his journey, the mechanics of the Kundalini energy path and what Osman calls the great skip.
Okay, I want to visualize this. Standard yoga theory, like if you read Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda or the works of the Swami Sivananda, the energy is like a thermometer, right?
Generally, yes. The classical texts say the energy rises from the root, the Muladhara moves up to the sacral, then the solar plexus. It's a linear progression up the spine.
Like climbing a ladder. You don't just skip rungs.
You shouldn't. But Osman argues that for many modern seekers, and in his own early experience, a massive malfunction happens. The energy moves from the solar plexus, the center of will and power, and it acts like a spark gap. It arcs right over the heart chakra.
It jumps completely over the heart.
Straight to the throat, then the third eye, then the crown, and finally to the chakra above the body for that samadhi experience.
You get this massive surge of energy, you get the psychic opening of the third eye, the bliss of the crown, but the heart is completely dark.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
And Osman has visual evidence from his own subjective experience. He mentions that for years he practiced open-eye meditation. He claims he could literally see the colors of the chakras as they activated.
Which is wild.
But he realized something shocking. It wasn't until he was 37 or 38 years old, decades after his first samadhi, that he saw the green light for the very first time.
And green is the heart chakra.
Right. He had been a master meditator since 19, but he hadn't activated the heart until his late 30s. He bypassed the center of compassion to get to the head, spirituality.
That explains so much about the coldness of some spiritual teachers. You listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza on the School of Greatness with Lewis Howes, talking about aligning these energy centers. If the heart is skipped, you have power but no empathy.
Exactly. It's like building a skyscraper but forgetting to put in the fourth floor. You can reach the penthouse, but the structure is fundamentally compromised.
Rainn Wilson on his Soul Boom podcast talks a lot about a spiritual revolution. But Osman is saying you can't have a revolution if you skip the heart. You just get intellect without connection.
Which leads to Osman's theory on true maturity. He argues that reaching the top, that samadhi state, isn't the finish line. It is just a milestone. The energy has to go up, yes, but then it must come back down.
The descent.
The critical descent. The energy must return and settle in the heart. Ramakrishna spoke about this extensively, coming down from samadhi to stay in the realm of the mother, the realm of the world, out of compassion. Osman argues most seekers get stuck at the top or at the third eye and think they've won the game. But without the return journey to the heart, you are incomplete.
This idea of getting stuck perfectly segues into the next section of our deep dive. The three knots, or the branties.
Yes. In yogic theory, heavily discussed by figures like Gopi Krishna and Dr. Bonnie Greenwell, these are distinct obstacles in the subtle body. Osman breaks them down very clearly and maps them to psychological states.
Let's walk through them. Knot number one is at the root.
The Brahma Granthi, the root knot. This is the barrier to even getting started. It represents our profound attachment to physical survival and material security. Osman explains that waking up the Kundalini at the root requires massive, massive effort.
Why is this so difficult?
Because of human inertia. Think about Mel Robbins. She had Dr. Russell Kennedy on her podcast talking about somatic healing and how fear gets trapped in the body. The root knot is that physical nervous system level fear. We are wired for survival, not enlightenment.
To break it, you have to convince your nervous system it's safe to let go. Osman mentions it sometimes takes a boost from someone with power to jumpstart it.
Yes, but he is incredibly adamant about one thing. You do not need a guru. He says in this day and age, with the shift in global consciousness, you can do it yourself. It's a very empowering stance.
Okay, so you break the root knot, the energy rises.
Yeah.
Then you hit the second major hurdle, the knot at the third eye.
The Rudragranthe. And this is where he says the smart people get stuck.
Stuff for years, right?
Decades. He mentions people being stuck at the intuitive level for 10 years or more. This is the knot of the intellect and the ego. When you reach the third eye, you gain intuition, maybe psychic ability, and a very strong sense of knowing.
And that knowing becomes the trap. The I know better than you trap.
Precisely. Lewis Howes explores this on The School of Greatness, the difference between success and greatness. The third eye knot is where people get stuck in their own spiritual success. They become arrogant. They have the vision, but not the surrender.
But assuming you make it past that, you hit the crown, you have the bliss, there is still one more knot. And this goes back to his great skip theory, the knot of the heart.
The Vishnu Granthe. Osman views this as the final and most crucial knot to untie. It's fascinating because in the ascending model, the heart comes before the third eye. But Osman suggests that for many, the knot remains tied even if the energy bypasses it. You have to go back and untie it.
Why is the heart the hardest?
Because it requires absolute vulnerability. Breaking this knot allows you to understand reality and truth. It's the bridge between the upper worlds of spirit and the lower worlds of material and social responsibility.
So if you don't break the heart knot, you have a bifurcated life, a spiritual life and a material life that don't communicate.
Exactly. You see this discussed on Buddha at the gas pump all the time. Rick Archer had Loch Kelly on, talking about bringing glimpses of awakening into the grocery store. If you don't break this knot, you're either lost in the suffering of the world or lost in the uselessness of the clouds. The heart is the fulcrum.
And that balance is the core theme of this entire deep dive. It's not choosing one or the other, it's integrating them. Which brings us to how Osman views duty, because he grounds this firmly in scripture.
Yes, he references the Bhagavad Gita, specifically the dilemma of Arjuna.
For you listening who might not be fresh on Hindu epics, set the scene. This is a battlefield, right?
It is. Arjuna, a warrior prince, is standing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He's about to fight a civil war against his own cousins and teachers. He is horrified. He collapses and essentially wants to renounce the world. He says he'd rather go live in the forest as a monk than fight this war.
He wants to opt out. He wants peace over the messy reality of his life.
And this is the pivot point of the text. Krishna, representing the divine, tells him, no, you must do your duty, your dharma. Swami Vivekananda wrote extensively about this in his work on karma yoga. You cannot run away to be spiritual. You have to function in your role.
Freedom in action rather than freedom from action.
Exactly. Osman applies this to his own life. He says he realized that God, this mind-blowing persona he encountered in his visions, is fit to be worshipped, but that worship strictly includes living a normal life.
He says, I would worship this one and come back. Coming back is the crucial part.
Now, it's really important to note that Osman identifies as a Muslim, but his worldview is incredibly pluralistic. He's quoting the Gita, practicing yoga, reading the Quran.
He cites Quranic verses saying messages were sent to all peoples.
Yeah.
And he takes that literally and globally.
He lists them out. He says prophets were sent to the original inhabitants of Australia, New Zealand, the Americas, China, India. Rainn Wilson had Reza Aslan on Soul Boom discussing this exact kind of religious pluralism. Osman believes truth is universal, and respecting all paths is a symptom of that heart maturity.
If your heart is open, you see the truth everywhere. You don't say, my way is the only way.
Right. That tribalism is a symptom of the root knot, which is fear, or the third eye knot, which is arrogance. The heart knot knows no tribe.
So we have the theory, the anatomy of the knots, the theology. But what does this look like on a Monday morning? Because Osman didn't just talk about being in the world. He went into the belly of the beast, corporate life.
This is a stark contrast to the cave yogi image. Osman talks about his time working for a major company with Fortune 500 clients.
And he wasn't just clocking in. The sources describe this insane work ethic. He was arriving at 5 a.m., unpaid, and leaving at midnight.
The context here is vital. This wasn't a trendy startup. This was a massive operation, bleeding cash, losing contracts. The culture was toxic. Management was at war with the staff.
Completely sinking ship.
And usually the spiritual move is to get off the ship, go meditate on the dock. Osman dives into the engine room.
Unpaid at 5 a.m.?
Unpaid. And he isn't just crunching numbers. He's performing energetic triage on the staff. He's managing the egos of 1,000 people, transmuting the office politics. He treated the boardroom like a yoga mat.
That is an incredible reframing. Getting two managers to agree on a budget without screaming is yoga.
It creates harmony, which is harder than levitating. On the Ranveer show, Gaurav Gopal Das talked about this living like a monk in the city, bringing purpose into a high-stress environment. Osman actually succeeded. He saved the contracts, he turned the ship around, and the company rewarded him. They offered him a directorship and a 25% share in the company.
Let's pause on that. A 25% share. We are talking a luxury house, a car of his choice, a six-figure income, millions in potential future earnings. He says, I am set for life.
He had made it. He proved a spiritual person could dominate the material world. He was the ultimate diary of a CEO success story. Stephen Bartlett had Simon Sinek on talking about empathetic leadership winning in business, and Osman lived it.
And then he walked away.
He completely rejected it.
Why? Most people would say, well, God wants me to be rich. This is the blessing.
This was the test. He walked away because of ethics. He felt he wasn't treated with equality compared to the other directors, and he didn't believe in the management culture.
He put his values above the payout.
He proved he could succeed materially, and then proved he wasn't attached to it. He says, I am set for life, but I left. That is the ultimate demonstration of the Bhagavad Gita lesson. He did his duty, excelled at it, but renounced the fruit of that action when it compromised his integrity.
It's a powerful lesson. Spirituality isn't about being poor. It's about what you prioritize. He prioritized the heart over the bank account.
And that prioritization shows up most clearly in his approach to service and charity. But it also comes with a very serious warning.
Section 6. The power of service. There's this lovely story from when he was 15.
This smile. He recounts meeting a Hare Krishna devotee asking for donations. Osman was a kid, had a little lunch money. He gave it all to the devotee.
And he says the recipient's smile was worth more than the money. It stuck with him for decades.
That planted a seed of radical generosity. He describes a time later in life when a close family member was in trouble. Osman just emptied his bank account.
Up to $100,000. Just gone.
And his mindset was, tomorrow I am going to die. Am I going to take all this with me?
That is total detachment.
But there is a nuance here that is crucial for any listeners in the helping professions. Osman practiced healing for 49 years. He's a master bioenergy healer, and for 99% of cases, he did it for free.
But that had a massive cost.
A huge cost. And a surprising lack of gratitude. He drops a statistic that is frankly shocking. Out of thousands of people he healed over decades, only one person ever verbally said, thank you.
One person out of thousands.
It reveals a lot about the psychology of free. When things are free, they are undervalued. Tony Robbins talks about this constantly. The exchange of value. If people don't pay with money, effort, or gratitude, they don't value the transformation.
And for Osman, there was a physical danger to this free healing. He mentions his method involves telepathic healing and quantum entanglement.
Yes. Deepak Chopra has written extensively about quantum entanglement, the principle that once two particles interact, they remain connected regardless of distance. Affect one, you affect the other. Osman claims to use this to connect with the patient's energy field. He takes on their energetic trauma to process it.
So he acts like a filter, taking their dirty water, filtering it through his own system, giving back clean water.
That's a great analogy, but filters get clogged and damaged. He realized taking on too much karmic debt from others without any exchange was dangerous to his own life.
He says he was putting his life in danger.
Yes. Healing is not a passive act. Andrew Huberman had Dr. Paul Conti on discussing the intense toll of trauma work. You cannot save everyone if you drown yourself. Osman realized he needed to value his time and his safety. He says, if I lose my life taking risks beyond my capacity, that's not good. If I'm alive, I can save more lives.
You can't pour from an empty cup. Mel Robbins talks about this with Trent Shelton, protecting your peace and setting boundaries.
So now, at age 57 plus, he's changed his model. Due to his extremely high success rate and his intensive practice, which was up to 18 hours a day in the past, and still 8 to 10 hours a day now, just sharpening the sword he charges for his premium energy healing service. And he is very clear that these consultation fees are not inexpensive.
Because he is paying with his life force.
Exactly. It's a premium level at a premium price. And let's be clear, he states his services are complementary, not a replacement for medical treatment. They enhance what might be lacking in the medical fields.
But he hasn't put all his knowledge behind a paywall, right? He still maintains that spirit of service.
Absolutely. His mission is to encourage as many people as possible into a scientific, result-based, simplified methodology. He spent his life trying to simplify very complex protocols from ancient yoga.
So where can people find this?
His YouTube channel offers extensive, unique advice and techniques completely for free. He says he does not withhold any information on his YouTube channel. If you want paid, live, daily video lessons, one-to-one consultations, or group sessions, he has a Patreon channel linked through his website.
And that website is yogawellness786.com.
Yes, yogawellness786.com. That's where you go for the premium bioenergy healing or to access the Patreon. He also has a podcast you can follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify by searching for The Blind Muslim Yogi.
Okay, so let's synthesize all of this. The Heart Manifesto. We've gone from the peaks of samadhi to the boardrooms of a Fortune 500 company. We've covered the 3 knots, the great skip, the toll of quantum healing. What is the ultimate takeaway for you listening?
The synthesis is that the highest level of spirituality isn't the light show of the chakras. It's not the silence of the cave. It is functionality.
Functionality, which sounds boring, but in this context, it's revolutionary.
Osman defines success as being a functional member of society, pitching up for work, not grumbling about the pay, but giving your absolute best until you leave.
He's tough on the complaining. He basically says, if you don't like the money, leave. But while you are there, you have a duty to execute that role perfectly.
That is karma yoga. The ultimate balance is when the kundalini rests in the heart. This allows you to love the creator, love the creation, and love your duty simultaneously.
You aren't choosing between God and the world. You're finding God in the world through the heart.
Precisely. It brings to mind Vivekananda's core teaching service to man is service to God. Osman is living that.
It really makes you rethink the whole spiritual journey. We think of it as a ladder we climb up, away from the earth. But Osman suggests it's a loop. You go up to get the charge, but you have to come back down to plug it in.
And if you don't plug it in, you're just a battery sitting on a shelf, full of power but powering absolutely nothing. Which brings up a final provocative thought for you to mull over. We constantly chase peak experiences. We want the breakthrough, the bliss, the alternate dimensions. But if that bliss renders you unable to say thank you, or unable to do your job, or unable to be patient with your family, is it actually a spiritual regression?
That is a heavy question.
Perhaps the most spiritual thing you can do today isn't to meditate for an hour. Maybe it's to do your job with absolute excellence. Maybe it's to offer a genuine smile to a stranger, just like that Hare Krishna devotee did for a 15-year-old Osman all those years ago.
The spirituality of the dirty dishes, the holiness of the 9 to 5.
That is where the rubber meets the road. That is the heart not untied.
If you want to explore more of Osman's scientific approach to these ancient arts, or check out his healing work, remember you can find him at yogawellness78nx.com.
And remember to follow his podcast, The Blind Muslim Yogi, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. He hopes his efforts will help revive this ancient science to improve your health, peace of mind, relationships, and finances.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today. We'll catch you on the next one.